brain is still missing in education. For generations, education has focused on curriculum, instruction, grades, performance, and compliance. Yet one reality remains deeply disturbing. The brain itself is still largely missing in education. The very organ responsible for learning, memory, attention, emotion, behavior, communication, and human development remains minimally understood in many educational systems around the world. Every day, teachers enter classrooms carrying the responsibility of shaping minds. Yet many educators were never truly taught about the brain itself. In many teacher education programs, the science of the brain remains largely absent from the curriculum. Teachers are trained to teach subjects, but often not deeply trained to understand how the learner's brain actually learns. And this should disturb us. Today's classrooms are filled with learners who are emotionally overwhelmed, cognitively exhausted, overstimulated, distracted, anxious, behaviorally dysregulated, and silently struggling beneath invisible neurological pressure. Yet education often responds with more content, more performance, more assessment, more pressure, and more compliance. But what happens when the brain itself can no longer breathe? What happens when emotional overload becomes part of learning? When fear becomes part of assessment? When memory is forced without meaning? When exhausted educators attempt to regulate exhausted learners? When children are labeled lazy, difficult, unmotivated, inattentive, or problematic, without understanding what may actually be happening inside the developing brain. Perhaps one of the greatest contradictions in education is this: we continue shaping the human brain, while remaining profoundly disconnected from the science of the brain itself. This is where neuropedagogy becomes essential. Neuropedagogy explores how the brain learns, remembers, develops, behaves, regulates emotions, responds to stress, and processes educational experiences. And Neuro-Calibration asks a deeper question: how do we intentionally help the brain regulate, reflect, recover, connect, and function more sustainably inside the classroom? At the heart of this framework is a simple but powerful reality: stimulate, process, program. Every classroom experience stimulates the brain. Every experience is emotionally, cognitively, socially, and neurologically processed by the brain. And every repeated experience becomes programmed into memory, behavior, relationships, identity, and human functioning. The question is no longer whether education shapes the brain. The question is, what kind of brains are schools unconsciously shaping every single day? Because every classroom interaction matters. Every word matters. Every assessment matters. Every emotional experience matters. Every teacher matters. And perhaps before education asks learners to perform more, we may first need to help the brain breathe again. Pause, breathe, calibrate. Because the future of education may depend not only on academic excellence, but on whether education finally reconnects with the human brain itself. The brain is still missing in education. And perhaps it is time to bring it back.